Hey everyone, let's dive right into today's explainer. We're looking at a profoundly personal memoir excerpt, a story that deals with trauma, intense anger, and the gritty, completely unvarnished reality of faith. We're going to completely dismantle those neat, tidy versions of belief that we're so often handed. You know the ones. Instead, we're focusing on what actually happens when life totally shatters our expectations, and how we process that with a higher power when the standard, polite answers just don't cut it.
Listen to this quote from the text. "There was a long season where I did not agree with God about my life." It's an incredibly striking admission, right? Think about it. So many traditional faith-based books just skip right over the messy, angry, deeply uncomfortable parts of belief. They tend to jump straight to the happy ending and tie everything up with a nice little bow. But the author argues that skipping this dark reality actually does way more harm than raw honesty ever could. This isn't some story about quiet, polite doubts tucked away in a private journal. No, this is about a visceral, highly vocal disagreement.
So, let's look at the hidden reality of faith. We're talking about a radical paradigm shift that actually begins with open, unapologetic conflict. To really get where this author is coming from, we have to understand her background. Her entire life, leading right up to this massive point of conflict, was marked by compounding trauma. We are talking about severe abuse and toxic relationships stretching back years across multiple, distinct chapters of her life. This wasn't just a single bad day or, a passing season of bad luck. It was an accumulating heavy weight of suffering that finally sparked this intense, unavoidable inner turmoil. It literally could no longer be ignored.
And that brings us to this specific, agonizing question. Why would a loving God allow this? And not just allow it once, but allow someone to go through this much pain over and over again across so many different phases of the exact same wound. The author emphasizes that this wasn't a question she could just neatly pray her way past. It just rose up in her, demanding an answer that she simply didn't have. And she absolutely refused to be silenced by basic religious platitudes.
Just to put the sheer magnitude of this into perspective, let's look at the timeline of her struggle. We aren't talking about a tidy little chapter of doubt wrapped up in a weekend retreat. Not at all. This was an ongoing, deeply messy marathon of spiritual conflict. It started as a simmering frustration for years prior. Then, it escalated into this intense flare-up over a 4-month period, literally yelling in her car, pouring out absolute frustration. And finally, it took years of processing just to find solid ground again.
What is absolutely fascinating to me is the actual nature of this conflict. For a long time, the author didn't even want an answer. She just wanted to be angry. And she allowed herself to be honestly angry because she recognized a profound truth. Pretending everything was fine, trying to pray politely while her heart was completely breaking, well, that would have been a deeper kind of dishonesty. And she was totally done being dishonest. She even admits there were specific words said in this conflict that she won't ever repeat, not out of regret, but because those words belong entirely in that private, raw space between her and God.
All of this raw honesty forces a total pivot, redefining what faith actually means. It brilliantly contrasts two ideas. On one side, we have the traditional myth, this assumption that true belief requires graceful, polite acceptance, the idea that if you really have faith, you'll just quietly understand whatever happens to you. But on the other side is the gritty reality she discovered. Faith is staying in the conversation, even furiously, even confused, even when you are demanding answers that you just aren't getting. The act of staying engaged, no matter how angry you are, is a profound act of faith in and of itself.
Because of that realization, we have to totally redefine what a failing faith actually means. According to the text, faith failure is the act of walking away entirely. It is not the inability to make immediate peace with trauma, it's not the anger, and it's not the confusion. Look, for anyone who has ever felt guilty for being angry at their circumstances, this is a massive validation. The anger isn't the failure, disconnecting is.
Let that sink in for a second. Along with this realization she had, closeness to God is not the same as agreement with Him. For years, she thought she was failing because she wouldn't gracefully accept her trauma, but she realized that because she never walked away, she was actually incredibly close to Him. She was just yelling, for a long time, from very close range. That proximity, even in the midst of intense conflict, is the defining characteristic of her honest faith.
So how does this all resolve? Let's look at how she was forged through fire, moving into a slow, years-long shift in perspective. Here is how that step-by-step realization actually unfolded for her. First, she had to fully acknowledge the depth of the suffering. She did this during those fiercely angry years, completely refusing to minimize her own pain.
Then came the slow realization that this suffering wasn't just random, meaningless pain, and that God wasn't somehow distant from it. And finally, the belief slowly emerged that she was being made into something not despite what she had survived, but precisely through it.
This culminated in an ultimate identity shift. She moved from seeing herself as a passive victim of a lifetime of trauma, someone to whom terrible things just randomly happened, to seeing herself as a deliberately forged warrior. She wasn't just broken by the fire, she was actively being shaped by it into a much, much stronger version of herself.
The result is someone forged deliberately through fire. Now, she emphasizes that she never would have chosen this fire. No way. No one would ever volunteer for that level of pain. But this agonizing process developed a remarkable strength and clarity within her. It built a resilience that she strongly believes she simply could not have built in any other way. The honest, furious conversation didn't destroy her faith, it forged it into something completely unbreakable.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. How might you reframe your own past struggles from a passive burden into a forging fire? We all carry wounds, right? We've all faced circumstances we didn't choose and almost certainly didn't understand. But if we can embrace the messy, honest reality of that struggle without walking away, perhaps we too can discover the strength of a forged warrior on the other side. Thank you so much for diving into this incredibly powerful material with me today. Keep asking the hard questions and keep learning.